"Mommy, how can he paint if he can't see? Is he doing magic?" The small voice cut through the bustling sidewalk noise, innocent and curious, as 4-year-old Meadow tugged at her mother's sleeve. 32-year-old Sable Whitmore paused mid-stride, her usual brisk pace interrupted by her daughter's fascination with the street artist sitting on a worn blanket, his fingers moving across textured paper with surprising confidence, despite the clouded eyes that clearly saw nothing. 34-year-old Briar Ashland heard the child's question and smiled gently in the direction of her voice. "Not magic, little one, just feeling. I remember what people look like, the curves of a smile, the way worry sits in someone's shoulders. I listen to voices and imagine the face that makes those sounds. Then my hands try to draw what my heart sees." Sable felt something unexpected tighten in her chest. Not pity, but recognition of profound resilience. She'd walked past dozens of street artists in her years running the prestigious Meridian Gallery downtown, but something about this man's quiet dignity stopped her from moving on. His setup was modest but meticulous. Charcoal organized by texture, papers carefully separated, a small sign that read "Portraits, pay what you can," rather than demanding a set price. "Could you draw us?" Meadow asked with the fearless enthusiasm of childhood. "Me and my mommy together?" Briar tilted his head, listening to the child's excitement and the mother's hesitant silence. "I'd be honored. Come sit where I can hear you both clearly, and tell me about yourselves while I work." As Meadow chattered about her favorite colors and her toy unicorn, Sable found herself studying the artist's technique, the way his fingers traced the paper's edges first, establishing boundaries, then moved with deliberate confidence, translating sound and description into surprising accuracy. She watched his face, saw the concentration mixed with peace, the absence of bitterness despite obvious hardship. What Sable didn't know was that Briar Ashland had once been a rising star in the fine art world. A brilliant young painter who'd won regional competitions, attracted gallery attention, and seemed destined for national recognition. That was before the accident 3 years ago, before the rival competitor whose jealousy manifested in sabotaged breaks, before the crash that stole his sight forever, before his girlfriend quietly left with the excuse, "I can't live this life," before sponsors vanished and the art community moved on to the next talented young thing who could actually see. His mother had stayed, encouraging him to keep creating, reminding him of his father's words, "An artist does not see with the eyes, but with feeling." So Briar had taught himself to draw again, through texture, memory, sound, and the spatial awareness most sighted people never developed. It had taken a year of frustration and failure, but eventually, his hands remembered what his eyes had lost.
20 minutes later, Briar handed Sable the portrait. She stared at it, genuinely shocked. The sketch captured not just their physical features, but something deeper, an emotional essence that most sighted artists missed. The way he'd drawn Meadow's joyful energy, the protective curve of Sable's posture, the connection between mother and daughter, rendered in simple but profoundly accurate lines. This is remarkable," Sable said quietly, her professional gallery owner's eye recognizing real talent. "How much do I owe you?" "Whatever feels right," Briar said with a gentle smile. "I don't create art for payment. I create it because people deserve to see themselves as beautiful, and sometimes I can help them feel that." Sable pulled out her wallet, intending to pay generously, but Meadow's small hand stopped her. "Mommy, he said whatever feels right. Can we just say thank you? He was so nice to us." Briar heard the exchange and quickly added, "Your daughter is right. Your time and her beautiful conversation while I worked, that was payment enough. Please, keep your money. You both gave me something more valuable." Sable felt uncomfortable accepting such generosity, but something about refusing felt like it would insult his dignity. "Then at least let me ask, do you have other work, a portfolio?" Briar's expression shifted, hope and old rejection warring visibly. "I have pieces, yes. I've been trying for 2 years to get into local galleries, but..." He trailed off, clearly unwilling to complain. "The Meridian Gallery downtown, that's my dream. Just to have my work displayed there once would prove that losing my sight didn't mean losing my art, but they never respond to my submissions." Sable's breath caught. He didn't know. This kind, talented man had been submitting work to her gallery, and she'd never personally reviewed street artist applications, leaving them to her assistant who filtered based on conventional credentials and professional representation. She should tell him, but something made her hesitate, a desire to evaluate his work objectively without the weight of their interaction influencing her professional judgment, or his knowledge of her position changing how he presented himself. "Keep creating," Sable said carefully. "Sometimes it takes time for the right people to notice." Over the following weeks, Sable quietly investigated. She found Breyer's submission files buried in her rejected applications folder, dismissed by her assistant because blind street artist, no formal representation, amateur setup. She looked at the photographs of his work, then visited his usual corner 3 more times, watching him create for different people, witnessing his consistent kindness even to those who had nothing to pay, observing how he helped other disabled individuals who stopped to talk, noticing the way he drew missing person posters for desperate families without charging a cent. What Sable also learned, through discreet inquiries in the art community, was the whispered story of his past success, the accident that remained suspicious but unprovable, the girlfriend who'd abandoned him, the way the art world had simply moved on when his disability made him less convenient to represent. She learned that doctors had told him surgery might restore partial vision, that he refused charity funding, insisting, "If I ever do it, it will be with my own earnings."
Sable consulted her gallery's advisory board without revealing the artist's identity. She showed them photographs of his recent work, described his unique tactile technique, explained his story only as an artist working without sight. The board was unanimous. The work had genuine merit, the technique was innovative, the emotional depth was remarkable. One advisor said, "This is exactly the kind of artist we should be platforming, someone challenging conventional assumptions about creativity and ability." But Sable moved carefully. She didn't offer Breyer immediate solo exhibition. That would feel like pity, and his pride clearly mattered deeply to him. Instead, she arranged a group exhibition featuring emerging artists working with alternative techniques. She sent him a formal invitation through proper channels, treating him like any other artist being considered. When Breyer received the letter from Meridian Gallery, he held it with shaking hands, asking his mother to read it 3 times to confirm he'd understood correctly. They wanted 4 of his pieces for an exhibition: professional submission, professional treatment, professional opportunity. The opening night was transformative. Critics who came prepared to be politely dismissive found themselves genuinely moved. Breyer's work didn't just demonstrate technical skill, it challenged viewers to question how they defined vision, creativity, and artistic value. His artist statement, read aloud because he couldn't see to write it: "I lost my eyes but learned to see with my heart. Maybe that's what art always was, feeling rendered visible." Sable watched from across the gallery as people approached Breyer, as his quiet dignity and obvious talent won them over. She saw the moment he realized his work was genuinely being appreciated, not patronized, and she felt something unfamiliar: pride in having helped without needing credit, satisfaction in choosing merit over her initial assumptions. What Sable didn't anticipate was her ex-husband appearing halfway through the exhibition, flanked by his lawyer, attempting to publicly challenge her professional judgment and credibility as part of his ongoing custody battle. Gregory Whitmore had spent 2 years trying to gain control of both Meadow and Sable's gallery, and he'd chosen this public event to create embarrassing scrutiny. "You're featuring a blind street artist," Gregory announced loud enough for nearby patrons to hear. "This gallery used to have standards. Now you're running a charity operation, which raises serious questions about your business judgment and, frankly, your fitness to make decisions for our daughter." The room went silent. Sable felt her face flush with anger and humiliation, but before she could respond, Breyer's voice cut through the awkward quiet, calm and clear.
"Excuse me, I'm the artist you're dismissing as charity, and I'd like to correct something. Ms. Whitmore didn't know who I was when she first encountered my work. I was reviewed anonymously by her professional board, who deemed it gallery-worthy based purely on merit. If anything, she maintained higher standards by ensuring I was evaluated objectively rather than given special treatment because of my disability." Breyer turned, facing toward Gregory's voice with eerie accuracy. "As for questions about judgment, anyone who would use their child as ammunition in professional warfare is demonstrating questionable judgment themselves. Your ex-wife has shown nothing but integrity and professionalism. Perhaps focus on that instead of trying to tear her down." The crowd's mood shifted palpably. Several prominent collectors who'd been watching the confrontation approached Sable afterward, explicitly praising her curatorial vision and expressing disgust at Gregory's behavior. A journalist who'd been covering the exhibition wrote a piece not just about Breyer's art, but about Sable's commitment to merit-based selection and support for underrepresented artists. Gregory's attempt to damage her reputation backfired completely, and in the following weeks, as legal proceedings continued, multiple witnesses testified to Sable's professional competence and personal integrity. Gregory eventually backed down, agreeing to monthly supervised visits with Meadow, but relinquishing his demands for custody or business control. Throughout this, Breyer's exhibition continued to draw attention. Critics praised the innovative technique, galleries from other cities inquired about showing his work, and most importantly, his pieces sold, not from pity, but because people genuinely wanted to own them. For the first time since his accident, Breyer earned enough to not just survive, but plan for the future. 6 months after the exhibition, Sable finally told him the truth, that she'd been the woman with the daughter that day on the street, that she owned the gallery he dreamed of entering, that she deliberately kept her identity secret to evaluate his work fairly. Briar was quiet for a long moment, then smiled. I wondered, your daughter called you mommy, and your voice was the same, but I figured if you wanted me to know, you'd tell me. Thank you for treating me like an artist who needed to earn his place, rather than a disabled person who needed accommodation. You earned it completely, Sable said firmly. Your talent earned it. I just made sure the right people looked. What neither of them initially mentioned, what emerged gradually as their professional relationship became genuine friendship, was how much they'd each learned about resilience, dignity, and the difference between helping and diminishing. Sable had always thought she was supporting artists, but she'd been doing it through her own comfortable assumptions about what art and artists looked like. Briar had taught her to look deeper, to value unconventional paths, to recognize that disability didn't limit creativity, it simply changed its expression.
And Briar had learned that accepting help wasn't weakness if it was offered with respect rather than pity. That trusting people to see his worth didn't make him vulnerable, it made connection possible. A year after that first portrait on the street, Briar stood in Meridian Gallery during his first solo exhibition, a collection titled Felt Truths. He'd used his earnings to finally pursue the eye surgery, which had restored partial vision, shapes, light, movement, though never full sight. It was enough. He could see Meadow's face now when she visited, could make out the blurred outlines of his art on gallery walls, could watch his mother cry proud tears at his opening. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when his ex-girlfriend appeared, apologetic and regretful, asking if they could start over. Briar was gentle but firm. I don't hold anything against you. You weren't equipped to handle what happened, and that's okay. But I've learned to keep moving forward rather than backward. I wish you well, truly. Weeks later, he learned she'd fallen on hard financial difficulties. Despite everything, he quietly helped. Not publicly, not demeaningly, just arranging for one of his sold pieces to be returned, with the payment redirected to her anonymously. Because that's what he'd learned about kindness. It wasn't about what people deserved based on how they treated you. It was about choosing compassion regardless. On a warm afternoon, Sable brought Meadow to the gallery after school. They found Briar in the education studio, patiently guiding a blind 7-year-old child's hand across textured canvas, teaching her that art wasn't about seeing, it was about feeling and expressing. Meadow, now 5 and fiercely devoted to Mr. Briar, settled beside them with her own paper and crayons, creating her version of the lesson. And Sable stood watching, understanding that this human connection, this passing forward of hope and possibility, was what her gallery had been missing before Briar's work graced its walls.
You know what I realized? Sable said quietly during a break. That day you drew our portrait for free, you gave us something worth more than any painting I've sold. You showed Meadow that kindness doesn't require sight, that talent transcends conventional ability, that disabled doesn't mean diminished. You showed me that my professional assumptions were limiting the art I could discover. One free portrait changed everything. Briar smiled, his partially restored vision catching the light streaming through gallery windows. And you gave me back my dream without taking away my dignity. You saw my worth before you knew my story. That's rarer than you know. Most people's kindness is contaminated by pity. Yours was just clean, honest, based on what I could do, not what I'd lost. Because true kindness doesn't announce itself or seek credit. It simply creates space for others to be seen for who they actually are, rather than who we assume them to be. It evaluates work before knowing the worker's story, offers opportunities based on merit rather than sympathy, and trusts that talent will reveal itself if we're patient enough to look beyond conventional credentials. Sometimes the artist we almost dismiss becomes the one who teaches us what art really means. Not perfect sight, but profound vision. Not physical ability, but emotional truth. Not what we've lost, but what we choose to create from what remains. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.